AMD moves Ryzen 7000 Zen 4 CPU launch to the 27th of September, so that will be the same day as Intel's 13th gen Raptor Lake unveil. AMD seems to have moved its original 15th of September launch plans for the Ryzen 7000 Zen 4 CPUs and the AM5 platform to late September. We have just got confirmation from our sources that AMD will be releasing its next-gen CPUs in late September for sales. Earlier this month, we reported that AMD was going to host an event in late August where they will announce all the details, such as specs and prices for their next-gen Ryzen 7000 Zen 4 CPUs and the respective AM5 platform. The company had also planned to open sales just 2 weeks later on the 15th of September, but it looks like AMD has decided to halt the sales a bit and position the real launch next to Intel's 13th gen Raptor Lake CPU on the 27th of September. Intel is expected to host its innovation event on the 27th of September, where the company will unveil its latest desktop processors codenamed Raptor Lake. The CPUs won't be unveiled until October, however. AMD's Ryzen 7000 CPUs will be ready for the mass consumer market. This may seem like AMD being very confident to launch their chips right when their competitor announces their next-gen parts. At the same time, online retailers have started listing down several AMD Ryzen 7000 CPUs along with preliminary prices. So you got the 7950X, the 7900X, the 7700X, and the 7600X. AMD's first wave of 600 series motherboards would focus on the higher end X670E and X670 designs, followed by the B650 and the B650E products a few weeks later, around October or November. The new CPUs will feature a brand new Zen 4 core architecture, which is expected to deliver up to 8% IPC, greater than 15% single-threaded performance improvement, and a greater than 35% multi-threaded performance improvement over the Zen 3 cores. Additionally, AMD is going bonkers with the clock speeds on their next-gen CPUs with up to 5.7 GHz boost clocks, and that's at 170 TDPs and 230 watt PT. Plus, the platform will be outfitted with the latest technology such as Gen 5 for PCIe, Gen 5 support for M.2. I would hope so if you got the PCIe Gen 5. I mean, those go hand in hand. And DDR5 memory support, which Intel has had pretty much all of those already. For example, I already got, DDR5 in my current system. I already got a Gen 5 M.2 in the current system that we're streaming to you guys from, and I already have PCIe Gen 5. And so the only performance improvements that I've gotten really out of that, though, is the M.2. To be fair, right now, the DDR5 doesn't show a lot of performance improvement on the Intel side of things yet. But as we know, with, the architecture of the AMD CPUs, you'll probably see a significant boost from DDR4 to DDR5 just because of the way it's structured. As a new SAS Smart Access Storage firmware suite that adds or that runs on the Direct Storage API framework. So you can get up to 16 cores. That's the rundown. You get over 15% performance uplift in single-threaded apps, which is going to be important. Of course, we do know that we are looking at possibly up to 6 gigahertz and beyond on Intel without any sort of LN2. So we are talking about probably liquid cooling on the Intel Raptor Lake, right? But we're talking about over 6 gigahertz on the overclocks. Now, this is important because this is kind of history repeating itself with AMD versus NVIDIA as far as the past few generations. And AMD has been in a position where they're very good at getting every single hertz out of the CPU as possible. This means, though, that when end users get these CPUs, they don't have that overclocking headroom. So when AMD says, 5.7 gigahertz, it's probably going to be 5.7 gigahertz. It's not going to go beyond that more than likely, or at least not by much. Whereas on the Intel side, especially if you do things like turn off the efficiency cores and so on, you have that potential for turning up that overclock more and more and more and more, which means you get better single-threaded app performance. And yes, it's 2022. We have a lot of multi-threaded performance applications, which, you know, is getting there. But for the day-to-day use, that single-threaded performance does make applications a lot snappier, especially things like browsing and so on, or even just extracting files. But where AMD will set itself apart from the mining perspective, as always, and can be expected here, is going to be the mining specs, right? Where we will have, as far as I can tell, probably a pretty nice boost in mining performance on the Zen architecture, because we are getting things like more cache. We are getting better performance overall per watt. These are things that are going to be extremely important when we get into mining. That being said, a lot of the CPU mining is not that profitable, right? So this isn't something you're going to look at and say, oh yes, new architecture from AMD. I'm finally going to get like a nice little boost in, you know, farm profitability and revenue. You know, unless something really comes into fruition from the CPU mining side, that won't be the case, right? There's some outliers that are still kind of trying to be profitable, anything like Raptorium or even Darrow, but they really don't have that mainstream support. The only CPU mineable coin that really has that mainstream support is going to be Monero, but as you guys know, the margins are extremely low on Monero. So is the mining community going to help shore up the sales of the 7000 series versus the 13,000 series from Intel? Not necessarily, right? Thanks for checking out this clip from the Crypto Mining Show. You can check out the full episode here or more crypto content down here. Also, I'd like you to check out my locals page at sonofatech.locals.com, where you can become a member for free or choose to be a $5 a month supporter that unlocks additional content.